Me and mine. The attachment to a sense of me and mine is firmly embedded in the human mind. It has a deep impact on people's behavior, on their well-being, and on human relationships, and it is connected to almost every social problem. This attachment to a sense of self provides a core focus for Dhamma practice. It must be attended to correctly, and many teachings address this issue. Many unique terms and expressions are used to designate this form of attachment. Following is a summary of such terms and expressions organized into groups. Group 1. This is mine, I am this is myself. Group 2. The belief in I, the belief in mine, and the belief in I exist. Group 3. The belief in I, the belief in mine, and an underlying tendency of conceit. Group 4. The belief in mine, the belief in I, and the conceit I am. Group 5. The self, things associated with the self, and the belief I exist. Group 6. Craving, conceit, and views. Group 1. These are the most frequently found in terms relating to an attachment to self. Most often this group is found in teachings encouraging an analysis of human beings as comprising the 5 aggregates, or as comprising other elements like the 6 senses, or the 6 forms of contact, or in teachings that promote an investigation of the 3 characteristics, leading to an understanding of things which precludes the attachment. This is mine, I am this, or this is myself. Group 2. This is an abbreviation of Group 1 above. A belief in I, a belief in mine, a belief such as I am this, or I still exist. Group 3. This is another abbreviation of Group 1. These terms are most often found in the phrase, there is an absence of, or freedom from, or eradication of I-making, mine-making, and an underlying tendency of conceit in regard to this body with its consciousness and all external signs. Group 4. The term mamyita is most often used to mean an attachment as mine, or an object attached to as mine, and is thus equivalent to etam mama. Occasionally it is defined as both a belief in I and a belief in mine, equivalent to mamata or mamanta, has an identical meaning to mamayita, but tends to appear in verses paired with mamayita or in place of mamayita, or as definition of mamayita. Asami mana is defined as the conceit I am, a sense of I, or the thought I exist. In Pali it is usually described as simply mana, but in the Habadama classifies it as one of 7 different kinds of mana. Asamimana is a defined form of conceit, which only arahants have abandoned. Non-returners have not yet done so. The Habadama distinguishes asamimana from other coarser forms of conceit, like scorn or arrogance, which are abandoned by awakened beings of lower levels. Asamimana is usually mentioned as a quality of Dhamma practitioners should eradicate. Essentially, the term asamimana is identical to esohamasi, and it can be simply called mana, the most refined form of conceit. Group 5. The terms in this group do not refer to attachment, but rather to things that are attached to or the state of affairs arising due to attachment. If one makes a broad comparison with Group 1, Atta is equivalent to Eso me Atta and Eso hamasmi, while Attaniya is equivalent to Itamama. Strictly speaking, however, the term Atta is confined to the view of possessing or existing as a self, i.e. it pertains to views, ditthi. It therefore refers only to Eso me Atta, not to Eso hamasmi. To encompass the entire meaning of the first group, one needs to add the term asmati to this 5th group. It is possible to translate Atta as I and Attaniya as mine, but the meaning of the expression I is not very precise or constant, and can shift to encompass either the 2 beliefs in Group 1. Group 6. The 3 unwholesome qualities, craving, conceit and view, are sometimes collectively referred to as papancha or papanchadama. Encumbrances, mental proliferation, things leading to excess. These qualities give rise to myriad complicated perceptions, as described in Chapter 2. They are grouped together here following a commentarial explanation. One can compare and match these unwholesome qualities with the views on attachments contained in the preceding groups in the following way. The English term me or mine, or I and mine, do not entirely cover the meanings of these 3 groups. It is necessary to add another expression, I, mine, and this am I. I just covered a table 1 tanha, 2 mana, 3 ditthi. In any case, translations for the second group, the mana group, are sometimes imprecise and unusual. One solution in the face of such flexible terminology is to use only the 2 terms I and mine, and then to define I, so that it covers both ditthi and mana. When it refers to a belief in a fixed sense of personal identity, then it is equivalent to ditthi. When it refers to personal status or to a personal identity used for comparison with others, for personal evaluation or as a source of pride, then it is equivalent to mana. The term mine is an accurate translation for the first group, the Tanha group. Ditthi present in the form of Sakaya Ditthi and Silabhata Paramasa, the first and third fetters, Samyojana, has been abandoned by stream enterers. Tanha in the form of Kamaraga, the fourth fetter, has been abandoned by non-returners. Tanha in the form of Kamaraga, Ruparaga and Aruparaga, the fourth, sixth and seventh fetters, and Mana have been abandoned by Arahants. Following this interpretation, one can give the following summary. The fixed view of a sense of self is abandoned at stream entry, while the conceit I am and attachment to a sense of personal ownership are abandoned when realizing arahantship. Appendix 4. Birth and death in the present moment. The following sutta passage may provide insight to those who wish to research the cycle of birth and death, samsaravata, as it occurs in the present moment, as it occurs in this present lifetime. The festering forms of self-conceiving do not accumulate for a person established in four qualities: wisdom, truth, relinquishment, and peace. And when such defiled self-conceiving is not accumulated, he is called a sage at peace. So was it said, and in reference to what was it said? I am is a conceiving, I am not is a conceiving, I shall be is a conceiving, I shall not be is a conceiving, I shall be possessed of form is a conceiving, I shall be formless is a conceiving, I shall be percipient is a conceiving, I shall be non-percipient is a conceiving, I shall be neither percipient nor non-percipient is a conceiving. Bhikkhu, conceiving is a disease, conceiving is an abscess, conceiving is a dart. By overcoming all self-conceivings, one is called a sage at peace. And the sage at peace is not born, does not age, does not die. He is not anxious and does not crave, for there exists no cause by which he might be born. Not being born, how could he age? Not aging, how could he die? Not dying, how could he be anxious? Not being anxious, how could he crave? So it was with reference to this that it was said, the festering forms of self-conceiving do not accumulate for a person established in four qualities, and when such defiled self-conceiving is not accumulated, he is called a sage at peace. Bhikkhu, bear in mind this brief exposition of the 6 elements. Appendix 5. Habadama interpretation of dependent origination. The Habadama describes many variations to the process of dependent origination, according to the state of mind, citta, i.e. as wholesome, unwholesome, or indeterminate, and according to the level of mind, i.e. as dwelling in the sense sphere, the fine material sphere, or the immaterial sphere, or as transcendent. The factors of dependent origination may vary according to these states of mind, and are not always identical to the factors mentioned in the suttas. For example, in some wholesome states of mind, the process commences with volitional formations without a mention of ignorance, or it may begin with the wholesome root cause, kusala mula, as a substitute for ignorance. Of particular note, craving is only found in unwholesome states of mind. In other states it is replaced by pasada, satisfaction, joy, confidence, or left out entirely. Because the Habadama examines the mind on a momentary basis, it therefore only analyzes the factors present in each specific moment. Factors such as ignorance or craving, which may be temporarily suppressed, are not identified by name. They are inferred by the presence of other clearly manifest factors, or else they are completely overlooked. The Habadama describes the various factors of dependent origination, both in forward and in reverse. Ignorance conditions volitional formations, and volitional formations conditions ignorance. Volitional formations condition consciousness, and consciousness conditions volitional formations, etc. Here I will only present the primary categories for consideration. 12 unwholesome states of mind, akusala citta. Avidya condition sankara, sankara condition vijnana, vijnana conditions nama, mentality, nama conditions Chattayatana, sixth sense basis, i.e. the mind, mano. Chattayatana conditions pasa, pasa conditions vedana, vedana conditions tanha, or conditions patigha, annoyance, hostility, or conditions vichikicha, doubt, or conditions udacha, restlessness. Tanha conditions upadana, or tanha conditions adimoka, intent, inclination, or patigha conditions adimoka, or udacha conditions adimoka. Upada conditions bhava, or adimoka conditions bhava, or vichikicha conditions bhava. Bhava conditions jati, jati conditions jara marana, equals the arising of the entire mass of suffering. Wholesome states of mind, of sense sphere, the fine material sphere, and the immaterial sphere. Avidya conditions sankara, or kusala mula condition sankara. Sankara condition vijnana, vijnana conditions nama, nama conditions chattayatana, chattayatana conditions pasa, pasa conditions vedana, vedana conditions pasada, pasada conditions adimoka, adimoka conditions bhava, bhava conditions jati, jati conditions jara marana, equals the arising of the entire mass of suffering. Kama, resultant states of mind and functional states of mind of the sense sphere, the fine material sphere and the immaterial sphere. Kusala mula condition sankara, sankara condition vijnana, vijnana conditions nama, nama conditions chattaya yatana, chattaya yatana conditions pasa, pasa conditions vedana, vedana conditions bhava. Alternatively, vedana conditions adimoka, adimoka conditions bhava, or vedana conditions pasada, pasada conditions adimoka, adimoka conditions bhava, bhava conditions jati, jati conditions jara marana, equals the arising of the entire mass of suffering. The first line in this section is in parenthesis to indicate that this sequence is not necessarily present. This section can begin with volitional formations as a condition for consciousness, or with unwholesome root causes acting as a condition for volitional formations. If the latter is true, then this only occurs in the 7 unwholesome kama resultant mind states, kusala, vipaka, citta. Transcendent states of mind, wholesome and kama resultant. Wholesome states, avijja, conditions sankhara, or kusala mula, conditions sankhara. Kama resultant states, kusala mula, conditions sankhara, sankhara condition vijnana, vijnana conditions nama, nama conditions chattayatana, chattayatana conditions pasa, pasa conditions vedana, vedana conditions pasada, pasada conditions adimokkha, adimokkha conditions bhava, bhava conditions jati, jati conditions jara marana, equals the arising of all of these qualities. Note: transcendent wholesome mind states, lokuttara kusala citta, may originate with ignorance or unwholesome root causes, but transcend kama resultant mind states, lokuttara vipaka citta, originate with wholesome roots or simply with volitional formations. Note also the difference in the last line of this section. Appendix 6, Neroda cessation. The term cessation has become the standard translation for Neroda. When alternative translations for Neroda are used, people may raise objections or they become confused, thinking that these alternatives are derived from other Pali words. In Buddhism, I too have relied on the term cessation for the sake of convenience, and to avoid the misunderstanding that another Pali word is being referred to, and also because I have not found a suitable, concise replacement. But there are many occasions where the term cessation itself may lead to misunderstanding and is technically the incorrect translation. The word cessation in English generally means the destruction or end of something that has already arisen. Neroda, independent origination, and in the Third Noble Truth, dukkha nirodha ariya satya, however, means that something does not arise because no causes exist for it to arise. For example, the phrase avijja nirodha sankhara nirodha is translated as, because ignorance ceases, volitional formations cease. In fact, this phrase means that because ignorance does not exist, or does not arise, or there are no problems associated with ignorance, volitional formations do not exist, do not arise, and there are no problems associated with volitional formations. It does not necessarily mean that existing ignorance must be terminated in order to terminate existing volitional formations. There are occasions when Neroda is accurately translated as cessation, for instance when referring to the nature of conditioned phenomena, and when acting as a synonym for bhanga, breaking up, anicca, impermanence, kaya, destruction, and vaya, decay. For example, bhikkhus, these three feelings are impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, subject to dissolution. subject to vanishing, subject to cessation. Every factor of dependent origination has these attributes mentioned in this quotation. Having arisen, conditioned phenomena automatically must decline according to the nature of causes and conditions. One need not try to make them decline. They will decline of their own accord. The practical application of this teaching is to see that all that arises must cease. Although it describes a natural objective process, the teaching of Neroda in the Third Noble Truth emphasizes practical application. There are two interpretations of Neroda in this context. The first derives from the prefix non-existence or without plus Roda, prison, confinement, restriction, obstruction, impediment, translated as free from limitation, free from restriction, free from confinement, i.e. free from samsara. The second interpretation equates Neroda with Anupada, non-arising. In this context, Neroda does not mean cessation or dissolution, bhanga. Although the translation of Neroda as cessation is not always accurate, I have so far been unable to find a concise term to use instead, and therefore use the customary translation. It is important, however, to understand the meaning of this word in different contexts. For this reason, these alternative translations for the cessation cycle of dependent origination are valid. With an absence of ignorance, there is an absence of volitional formations. With freedom from ignorance, there is freedom from volitional formations. When ignorance no longer bears fruit, volitional formations cease to bear fruit. When no problems exist as a consequence of ignorance, no problems exist as a consequence of volitional formations. There are further complications regarding translation of terms in the origination cycle of dependent origination. The Pali terms cover a wide range of meaning that can be captured by single English counterparts. For example, the teaching Avidya Pacaya Sankara Jati Pacaya Jara Marana in Pali can also mean because ignorance exists in this way, volitional formations exist in this way. Because volitional formations exist in this way, consciousness exists in this way. Because becoming exists in this way, birth exists in this way. Because there is birth, there is aging and death. Appendix 7. Concise definitions for the factors of dependent origination. Because the definitions in this chapter for the factors of dependent origination are rather long and drawn out, here are some short and simple definitions. 1. Avidya, ignorance, not knowing the truth, not applying wisdom. 2. Sankara, thoughts, intentions, mental dispositions, habits. 3. Vijnana, awareness of the external world and of the content of the mind, state of mind. 4. Nama Rupa, the constituents of life, both physical and mental. 5. Sala Yantana, the channels for cognition, i.e. the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. 6. Phassa, cognition, interaction with the external world, contact with sense objects. 7. Vedana, pleasurable, painful and neutral feelings. 8. Tanha, the desire for gain, for existence, for eternal life, for escape, for disappearance, or for annihilation. 9. Upadana, attachment, mental preoccupation, latent desire, ambition, cherished values, identification. 10. Bhava, current state of existence, personality, the entire range of human behavior. 11. Jati, the birth of a self that embodies the state of existence and interacts with the world. This self claims ownership and control of proceedings. 12. Jara Marana, the encounter with decline, instability, loss and passing away in regard to the self's occupation of this state of existence. Sukha Parideva Dukkha Domanasa Upayasa, various forms of suffering, example, grief, sadness, lamentation, mourning, distress, self-pity, hopelessness, and despair, all of which resemble toxins festering in the mind, and when outwardly expressed, generate more problems.